haven't done before. We decided that Brandon and I are just going to go live on YouTube right now and do a podcast. Brandon always starts his podcast, let's get into this. So I feel like we got to start with let's get into this. And what I want to start with is the reason I wanted to point out all the rappers here is because there's, stand up. Just the three of you guys, stand up. All three of you, stand up.
Yeah.
We have people that are making music right now, starting to make music in the Black community that is about faith, family, God, and individuality. So I want to shout that out. So let's talk about culture, Brandon. We were just having an interesting discussion backstage. Why don't you start off and just tell me, I guess, what your viewpoint is on the direction that Black culture and culture in general, I think would be fair to say, is treading right now in America?
Well, I think culture is, people are so soft these days. I mean, this weak, soft crybabies, men don't want to be men anymore. It's across the board. And, you can see that with people who lack personal responsibility. I was raised that everything that happened to you has everything to do with your attitude and the way you handle adversity. It's not somebody else's fault. You can't blame the white man. You can't blame your cousin them. You can't blame none of these people. You got to look in the mirror at that person that you see every day and say, do I want to win today or do I want to lose? Do I want to keep selling drugs or do I want to put the drugs down and actually live a life of freedom? Do I want to be married? Do I want to, keep sleeping with women I'm not married? Put myself in a position to have children out of wedlock. Those are decisions that you make as an individual. And I feel like people want to pass the bucket to everybody else instead of looking in the mirror. Start looking in the mirror, start being the best version of yourself, and I think that will change culture for the better.
I want to add to that because I actually had done an event the other night, and what you're talking about is a generational change. The mindset has changed from one generation to the next. And you guys know my grandfather is he's my biggest fan, and I am his biggest fan, and he really is my idol. And it's so interesting to me to have lived, been raised by a man who lived through real racism. When I say real racism, I'm talking about real systemic oppression, Jim Crow laws, right? A grandfather who grew up in a segregated South, and to speak to him on a daily basis and to have him never complain about anything, right? Then you find your average American today and they never stop complaining about anything, right? It's a non-stop complaining. And so you look at the generation and you say, just a couple of generations ago, the average age of D-Day, when they landed those ships in France, the average age of a soldier that fought, it was an absolute slaughter fest. Obviously, you know that on Omaha Beach. We got the bad beach. It was just bad luck. We went with the Canadians, the Britons, Americans got Omaha Beach. The average age as they were crossing the English Channel, they were crying, saying that they wanted their mother, was 22 years old. 22 years old. Your average 22-year-old today, I don't care what race you are, right? If I find a 22-year-old today, the average one on a college campus is crying because Ben Shapiro's coming to speak and I just can't deal with it. It's pathetic.
Yeah. I was just at Clemson speaking, and they had all these people out there protesting and saying that our presence on the campus was oppressive to them, and that it's somehow, I don't know if it's hurting their grades or whatever, because I just don't understand. And another thing with culture nowadays is people are so uninformed. I mean, they make such emotional decisions about everything. They read a headline and that's what they go. They'll down that hill. One perfect example, and I'm detouring just a little bit. One perfect example is the young guy that got killed, the 13-year-old boy, Adam Toledo, got killed by a police officer. And if you look at the news, you look at everybody's outrage, they want to protest, they got T-shirts already printed out, and they're going, this guy didn't have a gun, the cops just murdered him in cold blood, we need justice, we need to demilitarize police, and it's like, you guys are completely missing the point. You're completely wrong. The kid had a gun. It was unfortunate, but he had a gun. The biggest question that we should be talking about, if people want to hold themselves accountable, is why does a 13-year-old have a gun at 2 a.m. shooting the gun off in the intersection and running from police? And I'll add this other one in with Dante Wright. Okay, you know, I wish that people would not resist arrest. I mean, it's just simple. Like, I get pulled over by a cop because I'm wrong, whether I'm wrong or not. I'm not going to resist, and I will live nine times out of 10 for sure. But the question is, to me, is that why is a 20-year-old man on social media waving around a gun, smoking a blunt with Hennessy in his hand, with a warrant for his arrest for choking and robbing a woman at gunpoint, and not showing up to court, driving on a suspended registration? What culture, what type of young men are we creating that this young man is doing all of these things at the age of 20? And he had a young daughter. That to me is more baffling than the police interaction. Because all of these things that has happened in his life, all of the choices that his parents made and that he made, got him in a position for a police officer to make a mistake. Now, don't get me wrong. She should never be a police officer again, in my personal opinion. There's no way you should confuse the Now, there's a psychological reason why you could, but there's no legitimate reason why you should confuse the two. But all of these things led this young man to the position that he was in. We see the same thing with George Floyd. We see the same thing with all of these people that are getting killed by police. It's decisions that they're making and not holding themselves accountable.
And I think one of the things to ask ourselves is why we're not allowed to ask why, right? So you have a situation that happens and everybody wants you to react emotionally, and in an ideal scenario, they want you to go out and they want you to riot and they want you to loot, and for whatever reason, they want you to steal a TV from Target. Because right now I feel like that's the thing, right? I feel like now actually people aren't even upset and they're just going, yay, it's steal a TV from Target night, and we can run in and we can steal a TV. But what I have found interesting is that these are really important questions. Why these people have guns? Why did George Floyd? You're saying you're doing this because Black Lives Matter, but you refuse to discuss the fact that this individual, George Floyd, aside from being a drug addict, 'cause let's not forget, when I first did that video, everyone swore he was St. George. They were saying that he had just gotten his life back together. All of these lies were making their way around the world. And I just asked a simple question. I just Googled his record, right? And I said, if you're talking about preserving Black lives or helping Black lives, this man spent his entire life traumatizing Black people. He was arrested for armed robbery several times. He spent 9 stints in prison. He was moving drugs. So you're moving drugs into the Black community. You're getting arrested, for armed robbery. You put a gun to a Black or Hispanic woman, a minority woman's stomach while her 2-year-old was in the room, her toddler was in the room. You've traumatized Black people your entire life, and you want me to go out and riot and loot on your behalf when on a day that you were ingesting drugs and you were high on fentanyl? Isn't this just called a cycle of crazy? You want me to go risk being arrested? So you have a bunch of people who don't have records, who are told that they're supposed to be emotional, they're supposed to go out, they're supposed to riot, they're supposed to loot. In turn, what is the circumstance? You have one Black person, who died that day, and it's what seems to be clear to me from his medical records is of a drug overdose. Whether or not, let's not even discuss Derek Chauvin, just purely one person, one Black life, and you are willing to kill how many Black lives for that, right? We're hurting the Black community, and yet when 2 people get on stage and want to talk about that, we're told we're the Uncle Toms, we're the coons, because we are not falling for what seems to me to be a more nefarious media message, which is that Black people are only worth anything if they're outside and they're angry and they're rioting and they're destroying their own communities.
Amen. One of the issues that I see is that I feel like that many people, including Americans of African descent, is what I like to call Black people in this country, like losing the connection with God is where I see the biggest problems. We're not connecting with God like we used to. Big Mama used to have a big old Bible that she carried around all the time, and you get in trouble, she'd probably pop you in the head with it. In the name of Jesus, pow. So, but we grew up in believing in God, and Grandma used to always say, you're going to go to jail or hell if you keep going down that path, selling them drugs, and don't get your lesson. Grandma used to say lessons. She don't say go to school, you can get your lesson. I'm like, get my lesson. But that used to be valuable to us. Going to church, being a man of God, teaching your young people how to be leaders and servants, serving in the church and different things like that. I mean, even if you're not a Christian, you can understand service. I learned a long time ago, and the reason why I love this country so much is when I started serving with my life. When I became a police officer and I had to put my life on the line, and I said, you know what, I'm willing to die for people that I do not even know. That made me more patriotic. That made me feel like I have value. And the problem is that without God and without serving others, our young people don't feel like they have value. And they gain value from gangs, listening to Cardi B, twerking and doing all this other crazy stuff. And they see the value there. And that doesn't get you far in life. That's not going to make you successful. That's not going to put you in a position where you really want to be.
Well, and I want to talk about the education system because, in my opinion, I think it's the most important discussion that we should be having right now is what's happening to the American education system. It's completely collapsed. And if you look at what they're trying to do in terms of radically transforming the education system. So first they started this initiative, you know, when I was young, it was you have to go to college, you have to go to college, the pressure from the guidance counselors, go to college, you're going to be a failure, right? Well, when you think about that, those were really the early seeds for taking over the minds of children, making them think that the only way that you're going to be successful is to go to college because as we're learning today, these people are going to school and they're learning to become activists. That used to be reserved on the college campus. We're seeing these people come out of college, they're angry, they're activists, they're coloring their hair purple, they're woke to the world, they can tell you about feminism, racism, sexism, give me an ism and they can tell you about it. But they can't do basic things like change a light bulb, right? So what we're doing right now is the education system, especially with this new initiative called critical race theory, which is an abomination. We'll get into that in a second. It's an absolute abomination. You're teaching children how to hate one another. It's the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King's dream was, right? Teaching people how to hate each other. To say to a child on the basis of their skin color, you are oppressed, is racism. To say to a child on the basis of their skin color, you are privileged, is racism. You do not get to look at somebody's skin color and assign a bunch of attributes to them. That's a literal definition of racism. But why are they starting this initiative? In my opinion, they're starting this initiative because, first and foremost, they seek to divide people, but also because what they're simultaneously doing is they're replacing hard academics, meaning kids today, they can tell you all about the problems in the world, but they can't solve their math homework, right? So they're not learning the hard academics like math, engineering. We're producing right now in America, and I learned this through a Thomas Sowell book, this is the dumbest kids that have ever existed in America. They know nothing. They're failing their SATs, and yet, interestingly, there have never been more degrees handed out. So they're not passing the tests, but they're all getting degrees. The question is why? Why are we handing out meaningless degrees in feminist dance theory, in Latinx studies, Latinx studies, which is like, if you even use the word Latinx, I can tell you real quick you're not a Latino, right? The whole language would have to be redone if you started replacing it with an X. Everything is a girl or a woman. They're teaching transgendered studies, you know, pick your gender. What do you think is the evil and the goal in doing this when these kids actually know nothing, but you're convincing them with these meaningless degrees that they know everything?
Yeah, I think it's a diversion of the mind, man. You know, you got them thinking about this. This is important. Your gender, how you feel, and you know, all these other things are important. But that's not reality. You know, I wish that they would teach people, you know, to be married and to raise a family and to have integrity. And you know, I talk to a lot of people, this victim stuff that they create in people's hearts is I talk to people that disagree with me, and many of them come from a perspective of being a victim. I can never be this. This is the problem. This is where the problem is at. And the way I was raised and the way I look at it now is that focused on solutions. You know, work harder than everybody else. That has nothing to do with the color of your skin. You know, be a good person to other people. And it goes back to God to me. Like when I got saved, I started realizing that color don't mean nothing. We're all God's children, and we should treat each other that way. And at these universities, they want to divert your attention and make you think that white people hate black people and that black people are oppressed. And that is so far few in between that we shouldn't even be wasting our time arguing over that stuff. Is America racist? America is not racist. Aren't there people in America that are racist? Yes. People hate people since Jesus them days. And it goes both ways. When I was growing up, you could never bring a white girl home. Raise your hand if that's how you grew up. Just be honest. And I'm not trying to put nobody on blast, but it's like, you can't bring no white girl home. What's wrong with you, bro? You a sellout. If you made straight A's, you straight A's. You put your pants on your waist, you go to school, you articulate yourself, you sound really smart. You trying to be white, as if that's a bad thing. And those things, I believe in culture, needs to change. I think, and I know you agree with me, Candace, that like, I feel like black people in this country, and I'm speaking of black people because I grew up around black people. I don't know what it's like to be white. I just know what it's like to be black. So I remember black people used to be way bolder, smarter. You know, they demand when they come into a room, it's like, man, that brother's sharp, man, that brother is a leader. They walked around with their chest out and their head high. I mean, think about Martin Luther King in the protest. They had suits on. They getting sweaty with suits on. Martin Luther King coming out of jail just with his neck, you know, his one button loose with a tie on. They were respectable. They were strong, bold. You see men leading. And now I just see emotionalism. I see the product of a failed marriage where single mom, and I'm not bashing single moms, but everybody out here know that that's not the way God designed it. Now, if you got the cards, play the cards that was dealt to you. But God wanted strong men to be in the family, leading these young men to be courageous and teaching them what to do, how to present yourself, how to go to a job interview, how to have courage. And we just have lost that. And now it's this feminization of men. Now they wearing dresses. Now they get into their feelings. You know.
If you are a man, you are not allowed to have a feeling.
You don't, bruh, cry in the car. Y'all remember what's that, Friday? He gonna cry in the car, y'all. He cried in the car. He wasn't out in the public crying and being soft. I'm just gonna be honest, man. What happened to men?
And it's funny that you're talking about that, because what all of these things have in common, and especially when you look at the left, is that it's an attack on family, right? So whenever you look up at the left and you go, they seem to be running in so many different directions. Like, you know, why are we talking about bathroom signs? Like, we have nothing more important to do than talk about bathroom signs. But like, yes, like, no, all bathroom signs need to be changed. And you're like, okay, well, what does that have to do with all, you know, race? You need to focus on race. We need to talk about the transgender, you know, agenda, kids picking their gender. There's now 27, you know, genders, feminism, I hate men, the patriarchy. Why are all these women so angry? The Me Too movement. Well, what does all of this have in common? And the truth is that it's an attack on the family, right? If you are a child today and in certain school districts, they are allowing, you know, teaching children that they can pick their gender and all this stuff, and that they are believing and fighting for the right for children to have corrective surgery is what they're calling it. It's a nice name for mutilating your genitals, right, at a young age. That child will never be able to grow up and have a normal family ever again, right? That's just what it means. When you talk about women and this poison, which happened, you know, for me, I was forced to take in college a Feminism 101 class, which they called Women's Studies 101. You know, we were taught, it didn't matter what happened, it was a textbook that we had. It had every problem since the dawn of humanity that women have ever faced, and the teacher would say, you know, this problem, why did this happen? And the answer was always because of men. She wanted to train us to believe that everything that ever happened to us was because of men. Well, what is she doing with that? She's making it so that we're wearing rose-colored glasses, and no matter what, we think men are horrible human beings, right? And that's an attack on the family, because you can't have a functional relationship if you look up and every time you see a man, you see a problem, right? At the same time, you have policies, I call it, you know, baby mama culture, that are saying to women that you can do it by yourself, you can do it all by yourself. Being a single mom, and listen, you can, right? But you shouldn't have to. That's very difficult for a child to get ahead when they only have one parent. It's very difficult. So you routinely see this attack on the family, and what's behind that, in my opinion, is government. Because in order for a government to grow, that government needs to make sure you believe that every problem that you have, they have an answer for, not your mom and dad at home. They want to become both your mother and your father.
And they want to become your God too. They want to be God. They want to be your daddy. I mean, whatever you need, get it from the big government, and that's not right. There's 2 points that I was thinking about that when you were speaking, Candace, is that they want to create the division between men and women. This is just 2 parts of it: men and women, and then black and white. it's funny because if you look at history of the relationship between black and white people, it wasn't all slavery, right? How did Harriet Tubman, did she just somehow get on a cloud and just float away with all these black people to the north? No, it was white people who were dedicated to freedom.
I like the cloud idea, though.
I couldn't think of nothing. I almost said a spaceship, but then I was like, oh, that's too wacky. But it was dedicated white people who said, you know what, I want people to be free. I want to help Harriet Tubman out. When you think about the voting of abolishing slavery and giving black people rights and giving black people the right to vote, white people voted for that. There was courageous white people that said, look, I want black people to be free. I want them to have rights like everybody else. It wasn't just black folks. It was white people that cared. It was white people that wanted to see a future. The North never had slaves. They didn't believe in slavery. And I hate that they want to pit us against each other because we've always worked together to be successful. There has never been a successful black man in this country, in my personal opinion, that there weren't white people that supported that person. You look at me. I'm a perfect example. When I was in high school, Dunbar High School, all black school, right in the hood, a white coach decided to be the football coach at our school, changed our program. We had 9 D1 athletes and 4 All-Americans on one team. He revolutionized our program for these young black kids that didn't have no hope, no future, living in the projects in the city. He did that. When I had my son, had a son out of wedlock. That's why I tell all y'all young boys, don't you do it. Don't mess with these little girls and then you ain't married. Because, you know, they put that child support on you and all this other stuff, man. And all right, I'm going to get off of that subject. Some of y'all putting child support on people. No, I'm just playing. I'm joking, okay? So, what was I talking about? Child support? Okay. I got hung up on that one. But let me get back to the subject at hand. You know, I just think that those things, you know, we've always worked together. We've always supported one another. And I really wish we would use that as a PowerPoint for us and say, white people and black people have always worked together. Let's continue to work together. Let's not be divided. Men and women work well together. You know, you should be married. The best time of my life is being married. We have a newborn baby. Shout out to my wife. She's at home right now. Take care of that little knucklehead. Do you know how hard that would be if she had to do that by herself? She tell me all the time, she like, I'm glad we were married because I could not do this all day by myself. Yeah, because that's not the way God intended for us to do it. Don't be mad. Don't breed. I hope they would stop breeding these women that hate men and stop breeding these men that don't know how to take care of a woman. Can I just say this real quick? Yeah. Feminism is just killing women. I mean, just murdering them, murdering their whole lifestyle. I don't need no man. I'm a be a CEO one day. But then you want a good man. Well, who gonna raise y'all kids? Oh, okay. You don't like that. Okay. I think people need to start really focusing on saying that 2 people together is invaluable, and that you don't have to somehow be a CEO to have a worth. Women, my wife is stay-at-home mom. You know, she's. And I wanted it that way. My wife has the freedom to do whatever she want to do. But as a man, I say, I'm going to provide for my wife where she don't have to work. I want you to raise our child. I want our child to be raised by one of us at least. I'll go out and grind. I'll go out and bust my tail. But I want our child to be raised. Can you make sure that they're not getting indoctrinated? Can we work together to make sure they're getting the education they need, being raised properly? I don't want somebody holding my baby. I want my son's mama to be holding him, to be loving him and nurturing him. That's the way, in my personal opinion, that's the way it should be. Don't feel like you're less worthy because you're at home with the babies. That's probably the greatest job that you can ever have.
And it's the toughest job. It's the toughest job. And obviously, I'm a new mom, too. You know, my son's 13 years old. And I said it before, and feminism has become such, oh, did I say 13 weeks? What did I say? What did I say? 13 weeks. I heard some of the audience go, 13 years. I was like, wait, what did I say? 13 weeks old. And it's been, you know, that transition has been so tough. And before, I had my child, I had already pitted myself against feminism because I saw it as such a cancer. All bad ideas come from blue-haired feminists, and I. And I started realizing they were advocating for things that don't make women happy, and yet they're putting pressure on women to convince themselves that it's supposed to make them happy, telling women that, yes, not only do you have to have the children, figure out how to raise children, but also you should want to be the head of a Forbes 400, Forbes 100 company, and it just doesn't work like that, right? There is a balance, and biology is real. The patriarchy didn't decide, men didn't get together in a board meeting and say, okay, let's make the women have the children, right? God designed that. Men didn't design that, right?
Thank God.
And when you have a child, let me tell you, of all the things that I do, all of the important people that I meet, all the places that I get to travel in the world, your biggest accomplishment is when your child smiles back at you. When you've gotten your child down to sleep. Don't let modern feminists and this education system convince you that the real meaning comes from you climbing a corporate ladder, because it doesn't. Family is the most important thing every single day. And it's become this evil, and I'm writing my second book on feminism, because I've realized how
Another
women,
book?
yes, believe it or not, and I've realized that right now society is trying to undermine biology in the craziest way. I mean, even the concept of saying to someone, to a man, that you should be more feminine, that we're in this hyper feminine culture, but at the same time they're telling women that they have to be men. Society is man up, women. You should want more. You don't need a man. They're telling women that they're telling men that they need to be more feminine, and that's such an evil. It's such an evil to try to pretend that there's not differences. There are real differences that we should acknowledge between men and women. Those are beautiful differences. I want men to go out and be men, but I also want women to feel like it's okay to go out and be a woman as well.
I just feel like I want to stay on this subject of men and women. Like, there's nothing wrong with holding the door for a woman. That's the most. As a man, I remember we were at church, when women would walk up the stairs at church, you guide them up the stairs. You hold their hand down the stairs. What happened to men today where we don't feel that's, I don't know, I guess because feminists kind of make us feel bad for holding the door, but men hold the door for women. Stand in their place. I feel like nowadays, if you saw a woman getting beat up right here, men would be on the phone recording. We are to protect women. We are to be leaders. There is nothing wrong with taking women on a date and paying for it and showing courtesy, opening the door. Like, those things I feel like we are just skimping out on. And we begin to not appreciate each other that way. There's nothing wrong as a woman, in my personal opinion, to expect a man to be, graceful. Expect a man to be a man and lead. I think nowadays, and I have friends that are single, and they're gonna probably be single forever. And it's because they don't want a man to lead. They don't want to lose their power. And it's not about losing power. It's about, being selfless. And those things can build a great relationship, in my personal opinion. Like, and I don't want to go down this path because we'll be talking about relationship all night, but I just really want us to get back to those traditional ideas of loving and respecting one another, and being there for one another, and standing up as a man in a relationship, and for a woman to respect her husband's position in a relationship. My wife is a powerhouse. She getting people campaign clothes and everything. I mean, don't mess with Corinne or you will get shut down. But my wife respects me as the man of the house. My wife expects me to pray every night for our family. My wife expects me to lead our family and to go out and hustle and work and make it happen. That's my wife's expectation of me. She can do it all on her own. That's why I love my wife. She can do it all on her own. She did it for 30-some years. She was on her own with her little apartment with her ball tires on her car. Check engine light on and everything. I'm like, you don't need no man. Yeah, you do. Let me go get this oil change real quick. Y'all know I ain't lying. Tires ball as an eagle. I don't need no man. Anyway.
We also right now are living in a hypersexual culture. right? This idea, and I can't even stand it. I mean, women, the butt cheeks all out on Instagram, everything is now for free. I mean, and if you really want to talk about why it is, our grandparents, we all say, oh, they were together forever, right? Or grandparents were together, different time. Well, what changed? What it means to be a woman. We have this ADD culture now where people feel like they can hit refresh and find another woman. This one looks younger. This one's body looks tighter. They're using all these filters. And you're creating a reality that doesn't even exist. I think social media is so poisonous to relationships. And it's one of the biggest issues right now when the people that are at the forefront, the people that are making the money on social media, the people that culture is telling us should be celebrated, are people that are telling women that it's a form of freedom, to take your clothes off on the internet. I can't think of a higher form of slavery than thinking that the only time I can be heard or respected is if I take off my clothes, right? That needs to change. So I want to start talking about some solutions because we both just had, well, you didn't just have a child, but your wife just had a child. We both, are at the beginning of this process of being parents. And what would you say would be a couple of things that you want to do to your child that will help them survive in this climate, in this world that we live in today?
Be present. Be there for them. I have a 10-year-old son, so I'm doing this all over again 10 years later. I feel like I forgot everything. I don't know how I forgot how to change diapers and everything, but anyway, it happened. But, I would be present because it's a difference between being in the house and being present there. Some people are there and their kids can't talk to them. When I was growing up, man, I feel like I love my father. He was a great man. He still is a great man. He was a great father to me growing up. But I felt like the tradition and culture of beating your kids was a little more prevalent then. And I feel like I really want to be the parent that if I got to get you, I'm going to get you. But I'm going to talk to you. I want you to know you can talk to your dad. I want you to know that you can confide in me, that I'm going to be supportive of you. We're going to have these conversations. I never knew what my dad thought about when he was younger. My daddy never told me, oh, I was hitting on girls when I was this age. I was trying to smash and all this stuff. My daddy never told me that stuff about him. I thought he was God, because if I cut up, he going to tear me apart. But I want to be, vulnerable in that sense to my son to say, look, man, you can come to me. You can talk to me. My 10-year-old, I hug him. I tell him I love him. I kiss him on his forehead. I rub his back when he go to sleep. Like, I want him to feel like I have that love from my father. And my father isn't just this guy that's in the house watching football every day. I want him to have an intimate relationship with me. I don't have a daughter, so I can't speak to that, but that's what I really want him to have. And when he get into trouble, he get into things, I want him to come to his father and call me on the phone and say, Dad, man, I'm struggling right here. Or Dad, I'm thinking about doing this. Or I got this girl I like. I want to be active with this girl or whatever. And I want to be able to coach him through it and for him to respect my opinions.
I think for me, one of the things early on that me and my husband established is that we just don't want our kids to have social media. We want to raise our child. We don't want our child raised by Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And I think that that's becoming increasingly important. We also have a policy that right now, with the direction that the school systems are going into, we will not put our child in a public education system. And I think those are some easy solutions. I get so often people say, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Like, if I can't send my child to school for 6 hours a day. Don't forget that America wasn't founded on the idea that we had the Department of Education raising your children. When the Pilgrims first came here, it was moms on the same block saying, I'll take Mondays, you take Tuesdays, you take Wednesdays, right? On the community level. On the community level. And I believe that right now we have to go back into that environment, because what I am seeing coming out of these school systems is sheer evil propaganda, right? This is the stuff, when you talk about Hitler Youth, this is the stuff that we're seeing right now in American education systems, where they're trying to create children that are married to the government, that are passionate activists for socialism and for communism, and that are passionate failures. They're convinced they know everything, and they have no practical skills. I think parents right now in this moment need to wake up to the fact that this is not the same country that you were raised in, right? And what you need to realize is that you have to solve things on an individual level level and then on a community level. So that we can keep talking about these issues all the day, but you have to ask yourself a question. What are you personally doing in your life? How are you invoking change in your household? You are not required, to give your kids over to the education system. They are your kids. You make the decisions in your household.
Yeah, and that's why I think we made the decision. Me and my wife made the decision for her to, like I said, to stay home. I mean, we could both be making money, but it's like, let's put ourselves in a position where you can be there and help. I'm trying to convince her to homeschool. She said no.
Love that.
I got a whole bunch of homeschoolers in here. Let me tell you this. I went to speak at an event for Charlie Kirk, which was an incredible event. I thought homeschool was like, some crazy cult stuff, you know what I mean? Where like you're the only kid that's in homeschool and you don't have no friends and you're isolated, just mom and daddy all day. And then I went to this event and every kid there was homeschooled. And they were educating me about homeschooling, and they're like, oh no, we got recess, we got a community, we do all kind of stuff. We go on field trips, and I'm like, what? I thought you could only do that at a public school. So I'm trying to convince my wife, and y'all got to help her. Just hit her on Instagram and say, girl, you better homeschool, because of the same things that Candace is talking about, man. They're indoctrinating your kids. I don't have full control over my son, but I see him doing it. He be at the house, and they got the little Skype stuff going on, and I be in the back listening. And they talk about AOC. They talk about, I told them, they said Black History Month came, and they had all these people you can write about. They had rappers on there. They had all these Democrats. And I said, they don't have Thomas Sowell. They don't have Ben Carson. They don't have any of these people. Clarence Thomas. Like, they had justices, but they don't have anybody like Clarence Thomas. They had, not justices, but they had other black people of influence, but nobody like Clarence Thomas, no other person in politics other than Democrats. I mean, it was crazy to me. And it's an indoctrination that happens. But we as parents are responsible. We can't keep pointing the finger at the school district. You either go down there and get in people's face about what's going on, or you pull your kids out of school. That may require you changing your lifestyle. And I'll say this, and I know it's easy for me to talk. I'm going to keep it real. It's easy for me to talk right now because I'm in a position to do this. But I think when you begin to start a family, you need to think about these things. You need to think, okay, well, maybe we can't have a big old house and 2 cars and a big screen TV and internet, free internet. Maybe we need to cut it down and have a smaller house, 1 car, and we have internet, no cable. Because one of us probably need to stay at home in this day and age. I've heard so many people that reached out to me and said that some people have had to quit their job because their kids cannot go to these schools and be indoctrinated the way that they are. And y'all have to understand, college is worse. I go to colleges, and young people that I mentor, that I talk to, that ask me for advice, I say, you don't go to college unless you have to. If you have a specific degree that you're going, that you know that you got a work environment or a work plan after you get that degree, then you should go. But other than that, I don't know if I would go to college. If you're a young man and you don't know what direction you want to go, serve. I'll join the military. When you're 21 years old, join the police department. I'll tell you what, you'll have retirement, you'll have good benefits, you can raise a family on your salary, you have upward mobility, you learn how to serve, you learn how to be courageous, you learn how to work as a team, you build a family. In the military, there's also other benefits of being in the military. There is no parallel experience that you can have than going through boot camp. Like, it'll make you a man. I mean, it'll make you value a lot of different things when you go through something that challenges you as a person, that challenges your courage and your heart. Same thing with the police academy. And I know we have some military people in here. Shout out to all the military people, veterans, active. My boy Topher, I know he was in the military. And so
I also want to add that if you are a business owner, how can you help? Start hiring kids out of high school. Give them an option, because these kids are being told that they will be failures unless they go to college, unless they rank up a bunch of debt to get a meaningless degree that teaches them no life skills, and it can only turn them into an angry person, because you're wondering, I did everything right, I went to college, I got a degree, why can't I get a job? Well, you can't get a job because you're not learning any practical skills, you're not learning about the free markets and the economy and what people actually need. And so as a business owner, if we all made the pledge to stop asking for college, to see what colleges they went to on their resumes, and say, I'm happy to hire someone out of high school and to teach them the skills that they need, we could instantly undermine that system. The college education system, which is really just an effort, as I said earlier, to propagandize children and to undermine America. You know, America, in my opinion, is the greatest country in the world, and it's sad that right now we're losing this country very quickly because we're teaching and producing children with an anti-American sentiment, to not realize that they are the most blessed people to ever live on the face of the planet, ever. If you were born in America, it's that simple. And people that question that, people that say, oh, that's not true, like, you know, if you're born in America, America's not the greatest country. Well, then ask them this question: why are they insisting that we keep our borders open? If America's so bad, why the hell is everybody trying to get into it, right? And I'm talking about from every country, you know. They'll say, oh, well, this country's, you know, this country, China, they're better at us in mathematics. Okay, are a bunch of Americans trying to get to China, or a bunch of Chinese Americans trying to get to America? It's the opposite way, because despite the fact that, yes, if you're talking about individual metrics like that, are Chinese Americans and Korean Americans better than Americans at mathematics? Absolutely. I mean, Koreans and Chinese people better than Americans at mathematics? Absolutely. But there's something wrong with their country, because despite being better at mathematics, they want to come to America with that knowledge and that skill that they have. And the reason for that is because the idea, America is an idea. The thing that brings Americans together is not that we have the same race, the same sex, or necessarily even the same religion, but it's an idea and a belief, you know, that no matter what, hard work wins, right? Hard work wins. And hard work can only exist, can only be rewarded in a free market capitalist society. Right now, in my honest opinion, America is being threatened from the inside out. I believe that we are being invaded at this very moment, because I don't think we exist in a time where tanks can roll in and you're saying we're going to take over America. But people that are trying to take over America are doing it from the inside out. It's absolute poison that's happening. The mindsets of people that are coming out of the school system are being poisoned with anti-American sentiment. I do believe that we at this moment, if we wake up enough people, if we do enough of these events, right? If we go person to person, if we make individual decisions like pulling your kids out of school, that we can turn this ship around before it hits an iceberg. But it's going to take an effort from every single individual, person to person, day in and day out. Figure out what your talent is, because right now we're in a cultural war. Maybe you are the person who knows how to put some rhymes together and put out an album of good music and talk about Christianity and talk about ethics and do it while keeping your clothes on. Maybe that's you, right? Maybe you're the person that says, you know what, I'm not a good rapper, but I know how to write a check, right? and I'm going to support this person. Don't forget, me and Brandon, we started our careers on YouTube. I was a YouTuber. I had nothing but ideas, and I had people that believed in my vision when I started Blexit. When we started this 501c3, people from around the world poured in and said, we want to see Blexit in every single city. Maybe you're the rapper, maybe you're the financier, maybe you're the writer, maybe you're the person that writes articles and makes people understand that this is actually not true, you're the researcher. You better believe that every single person in this room has a talent that can be contributed right now that can help us to save the country. And that's what I want to leave this talk on this note of. Figure out what your talent is. Are you the rapper? Are you the singer? Are you the writer? Are you the person that can finance these projects? It's that serious. Don't walk out of this room and go, oh, that was a nice event. Figure out how you're going to help, because we are on the brink of losing this country. There are people that want to divide us based on race, sex, gender, and all of the above. Only together, black, white, Hispanic, only together as Americans, as I look around this room and I see people of every color, are we going to save this country? The time is now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. Brandon, I think that's a wrap, because we're getting the time thing. Thank you guys so much. I think we have one more thing.
And I want to give a shout out to a young lady with the Tatum Report hat on right there.
Oh, hey, how are you?
That's my news site. And she got the shirt too.
I love it. Thank you guys so much.